Hey there, everybody. Everybody's going to be coming in here pretty soon. So we are getting ready to start advanced interviewing, which is going to be a little bit different than what you usually do prior to an interview. I'm very excited about this. So right now we are waiting for everybody to join. So I'm going to give it just a couple of minutes while we've got some people that are coming in. All right. People are entering the room. Introduce yourself if you could, and let us know maybe your first name and where you're from. Would really like to know. And also, I am Tammy Kabell, and I am founder and CEO of Career Resume Consulting. Most of you probably know that. And we're going to wait just a few minutes to get a whole bunch of people into the room. I know there's a lot of people that registered for this one. And if I can brag on myself just a little bit, toot my own horn, I think that interviewing, well, this is what I've heard from clients. Interviewing and negotiating is where I really shine. So I'm very excited to bring you this information that I share with my clients. And so today we're going to be talking about what you can do before the interview to create an incredible first impression. And that first impression will last with people quite a long time. So this is going to be information that you can use immediately to start beefing up your LinkedIn profile and your resume, as well as quantifying your achievements and overcoming any liabilities that you might have. There's going to be a lot of really good information. And of course, anybody that's here is going to get the availability of the presentation that I put together. So you can have a PDF version of the PowerPoint that I put together for you guys today. So we will wait until the top of the hour to get started, and then we will get started going. So I want to introduce my three moderators. I've got my talented husband, Brian. Brian Kabell is one of the moderators. Also, my second-hand woman, which is Lacey. She's going to be on as well as Philip Brown. Lacey Schicky and Philip Brown are two of our team members. Philip is actually a coach out of Newcastle, England, so he's over in the UK. And he handles a lot of our clients here in the States, as well as our European clients and anybody in the EMEA region. So we're waiting until the top of the hour, a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. I can see people are still coming in to this live stream. And again, today we're going to be going over some advanced interviewing techniques, mainly how to create a stellar first impression. And I'll get into why a first impression is so important at the top of the hour. That's super important. So we've just got 2 more minutes left, maybe a minute and a half, and then we'll get started. And if you have any questions during this live stream, go ahead and put them into chat. And if our moderators can't answer them, what they're going to do is text me, so that at toward the end of the hour, the last 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be answering questions. So a lot of you have put in questions ahead of time, so thank you very much for doing that. I'll be answering those questions, as well as taking questions live from the audience today. So if you have any questions that come up for interviewing, not necessarily before the interview, but even while you're interviewing, I'm going to be covering, most likely, interviewing once you get into the interview next week on our live stream next week. So we've got just 1 more minute, and then I will get started with the live stream. So I'm very, very excited to show you this information. I'm going to take a look at the chat right now. Yes, the webinar will be recorded for replay. It's being recorded right now. So it will be available if you registered. I'm going to send it out probably tomorrow morning, maybe tonight, but I'll get that out to you either tonight or tomorrow morning. And then it'll also come out on YouTube tomorrow as well. So you can see it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and you'll also be able to get an email with a recording that will give you access to the documents as well. So yeah, Mark says excellent. Thank you. Let me take a look. Hi, Alexandra. Hello. Hello, John. Hello, Jomi. All right. Excellent. Hello, Adrian. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me turn on my slides. Give me just a moment. All right. Excellent. Okay. So advanced interviewing, a stellar first impression. So first of all, let me explain to you why a first impression is so important. So the human brain wants to put everybody into a specific box as soon as possible. I would say that just in order to take in and assimilate all the information that's coming into the brain, we try to define things very quickly. What that means is that people judge you very quickly. For good or for bad. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are judging you harshly. It just means that they're trying to define whether you're a great candidate or not a great candidate as soon as they start to learn about you. So this is going to be, hold on just a second. I just got to make sure that you guys can hear me. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're going to do a poll here in just a second. But first, I want to go over the stellar first impression. So, a first impression stays with someone 66% of the time. And so that means that in the first, anywhere, depending on the study that you look at, anywhere from the first 90 seconds to the first 5 minutes that someone learns about you, that's the impression that they get about you before they meet you. That sticks with somebody 2/3 of the time. That means that you could completely bomb the interview, but if you have a stellar first impression prior to the interview, when they look at your resume, when they look at your LinkedIn profile, and everything that they see about you prior to the interview and in the first couple of minutes of the phone interview or the face-to-face interview, the first time they meet you, that sticks with them and doesn't change 2/3 of the time. So you could completely flop the rest of the interview, but if you stick the landing on that first 90 seconds, that first 5 minutes, and you also have a great LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to show you some things that you can do very quickly today to really polish up your LinkedIn profile. So we're going to go over quite a bit of things today. Actually, this is going to be full of a lot of content today. So before I go into the content, I'd like to get a poll of how are you guys feeling right now as far as interviewing. So if you could put up the poll, let me stop the slide presentation here. And if you could put the poll up, Lacey, that talks about how comfortable are you in the interview? I'd be very interested to know. I'm going to take a look at your answers. So when you go into an interview now, are you extremely confident? Are you mildly confident that you're going to do a good job? Are you a little apprehensive, but you usually perform well? Or are you extremely nervous that you're going to bomb the interview? So I'd like to take a temperature of you guys right now. It looks like between mildly confident and a little apprehensive right now. So it sounds like you guys are top performers. You usually do pretty well in an interview. You may not know why you're not getting the job. Maybe you're not getting past the phone interview. I see that in a lot in the questions. And so we'll be going over some phone interviewing techniques next week. But I really want to get you in a great solid foundation so that once you get into that interview, you've already created a fantastic first impression. So looks good. Looks like mildly confident is winning out over a little apprehensive, but usually perform well. So that looks great. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll because we're going to go back into the slides. Okay. So let me get in here. All right, here we go. So here's what we're going to learn today. How to create a great first impression. So we're going to talk about liabilities. Liabilities are my word for anything that is a challenge in your career search. Anything that would keep someone from calling you about an interview or keep them from hiring you if you're in a hiring process. So that could be ageism, could be unemployment, it could be gaps in your career, it could be short tenure. in jobs. They think you're a job hopper. So we're going to talk about those proactive strategies and to overcome the liabilities. And I'm going to take one of them, ageism, and go into what you can do proactively to overcome ageism. Then we're also going to go into depth as to how to polish your LinkedIn and your resume, specifically around quantifying your achievements, which is really important in an interview to tell stories of your achievements that have quantifiable results, as well as the LinkedIn profile's really got to be polished. I'm going to show you how to do that and get seen. So how do you increase visibility on LinkedIn? We're going to go through that as well. I'm going to be able to really change the way that people see you and how many people see you in their search results. And then I'm also going to go over a cheat sheet. Now, a cheat sheet is something that I share with my clients to teach them how to do a cheat sheet so that even if you're going into a face-to-face interview, you've got your stories in front of you, you've got the questions you want to ask in front of you so that you're not stressed out during the interview. That keeps you, it alleviates all that stress of having to remember everything from your resume. And then also I'm going to give you some tips on how to research both the company and the interviewer. And this goes way beyond just looking at the website, the company website, and their LinkedIn profile. I know that's exactly what you do because that's exactly what everybody does. So I'm going to show you how to do some research beyond just looking at the company website and LinkedIn. All right. So let's start with developing proactive strategies for your liabilities. So Lacey is going to put up a file. Lacey, if you could put up the PDF that is the list of potential liabilities that you may have. Go ahead and download that. You don't even have to put in your name or email. You just click the button and you can download that file. And that's going to show you the list of potential liabilities that you may have. I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this for 17 years, and I have yet to find someone that doesn't have at least one liability that they have to overcome. However, what I found is that you can overcome any liability as long as you have a proactive strategy in order to get a position. I'll give you a really good example. I've helped people, believe it or not, that have a felony in their past. And so when you look them up on LinkedIn, their mugshot's the first thing that comes up. I was able to get a gentleman who was unfortunately convicted of something that he didn't really do. It was his employer trying to get back at him. So involving his employment. I hate to say, regarding his employment. So I was able to get him a $290,000 sales leadership position. So if I can overcome that, you can overcome anything as long as you have a proactive strategy. So I want to go a deep dive. I want to do a deep dive of one of the liabilities that's very common with our clients. A lot of our clients are in their mid-50s or above. And so I'm going to go over the liability of ageism as an example to give you an idea of how to get into the interviewer's head. What you first want to do is figure out what concerns, valid or invalid, do employers have a hiring manager or HR or recruiter. What kind of concerns do they have about you? And in this case, we're looking at ageism. So the concerns that they have are you going to take a lot of time off because of your health? In other words, are you going to need a knee replacement or a hip replacement? I mean, usually a hip replacement isn't very common, but knee replacement is very common for people in their 50s and early 60s. And also they're worried about somebody who's approaching 60 years old not being able to learn quickly. Therefore, they're not going to be able to pay for themselves very quickly. So you've got to show that you can learn quickly, and you do this proactively. So I'll talk about some of the ways that you can overcome these liabilities proactively. They could be concerned that you're not up to speed with technology. So there are ways to proactively show them that you know technology. Also, they're worried about you being too expensive. What if they can get somebody with roughly the same skill set, but not the experience that you have? for maybe 1/3 the price if they're under 30 years old. So that's something that you have to deal with, that you have to proactively overcome, and actually turn your age into a strength rather than a liability. And then, of course, they may be worried about you retiring too soon. If you're 58, 59, they may be thinking, well, when does this person want to retire? Is he or she going to leave in 2 years? But honestly, the average tenure per employer these days is 2.8 years. And so if you stay more than 3 years, you're actually staying more than the average. So let me go over just a few of these. And I will tell you that I have seen ageism, and it's different in different parts of the country. So here's what I found. On the East Coast, and this is in the US, of course, I do see ageism overseas. I mean, we really work all over the world, and I start to see ageism in Asia, not so much, because their culture is different, and they recognize that older people have a lot of wisdom to bring. But in Australia, I see ageism over age 60. I see ageism in the UK around 58, which is about the norm for the US. And then in what I find in the US is that the East Coast has ageism starting at age 56. And the West Coast has ageism starting at age 45, believe it or not. That's what I've seen. So, and by West Coast, I'm talking about California and Washington, Seattle specifically. And Portland should probably be included in that. So I would say that the rest of the country, though, from the top of Minneapolis all the way down, or Minnesota down to the bottom of Texas and Houston, everything in the middle that isn't on the coasts, I start to see ageism around 58. So if you are worried that if they are worried about these things, if you are over 58, then you need to proactively bring up things, because they're not allowed to say, you're kind of old. When are you going to retire? They're not allowed to say that. So, but they're still thinking it. So as far as taking time off due to health, you want to show them that you're active. So you might even say in the small talk, when you first get into the interview, you might say, wow, the weather is so gorgeous this weekend. I can't wait to hit the links. Or you might refer to the last tennis game that you played, or your morning walk, whatever it is that you normally do that shows that you're active. You might just mention it as an aside, and that could make all the difference right there. As far as learning quickly, you could also bring up, when you talk about your core strengths, you could talk about how you're a constant learner and you're quickly becoming a subject matter expert in everything that you learn, that you still read at least one book a month, and that you like leadership books and, maybe nonfiction books as well as fiction. Whatever it is, show them that you're a constant learner. And as far as not up to speed with technology, if you're older, you could bring in a tablet into the face-to-face interview, and you can have all of your achievements in charts, graphs, from LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, not LinkedIn, from Excel. Put them into your like a PowerPoint presentation in the tablet, and then just show them all of your different achievements on the tablet. Shows that you're up to speed with technology. And of course, if you're not going to retire anytime soon, you might say, hey, I'm looking for a place where I can spend the next 5 to 10 years. You might actually say that out loud, and that's going to quell their fears that you might be leaving too soon. And so also, if you're too expensive, what you've got to show is that you've got so much experience that you have been there and done that in every single thing that they need you to do. So you need to have a story with a quantifiable result. That's really important. People are attracted to numbers. So we'll talk about that when we talk about quantifying your achievements. But show a lot of experience with quantifiable results to show that you're worth the money that they would pay you. You get what you pay for. So you got to show that. And they are not going to get the amount of wisdom and expertise that you have from somebody under 30 years old or 35 years old. So this is just one liability, but if you think about what's in the interviewer's head when it comes to liabilities, when it comes to being unemployed, when it comes to being a job hopper. What is it in their head, and how do you proactively, in your stories, in your answers, you proactively overcome what they're thinking in their heads in order to get past those thoughts that they're not allowed to ask you about? All right. Keep that in mind. Any liability you can overcome as long as you've got a proactive strategy to overcome it. All right. So now we're going to talk about polishing up your LinkedIn and your resume. Okay. And I'm going to go into, I'm actually going to do a screen share here pretty soon. I'm going to go into LinkedIn, and I'm going to show you how to do a few things that really make your LinkedIn shine. And in fact, if you want more information than what I'm going to show you here, Lacey has a link to a LinkedIn video that I made, a tutorial that shows you how to get color, like emojis, stars and check marks and bullets that are colorful to really capture the eye. It brings a lot of polish to your LinkedIn. So let's talk about polishing your LinkedIn. First, you have to have a great background picture. You know, I'm always surprised when I hear from a client that they didn't know that you could change the background picture. What I'm talking about is the image behind your headshot. So that long image, I'm going to get into a screen share and show you exactly how to find the best images. We're going to do that today. And so a great background picture will really make everything sparkle. We're going to talk about that. Also, take a great headshot. No longer do you need a studio picture. And if you're a man, you don't even need to wear a tie. Maybe a button-up shirt without a tie and a suit jacket. It doesn't even have to be like a three-piece suit type thing. And with ladies, just a blouse. It doesn't have to be a dress. And you want a really nice headshot that's cropped tight and that possibly is taken outdoors. Most of the people that are on this webinar or this live stream are in the Northern Hemisphere. And so it's beautiful, sunny, and it's hot. So you got to get in some place a little bit shady. But if you've got greenery in the background, then if you crop it tight, they're not going to know what they see in the background. They just know that they see your smiling face. And if you've got to smile and show your teeth, that's really important. Most men don't like to do that. They feel that it's too cheesy. However, showing your teeth really makes a difference. Another thing that makes a difference is smiling with your eyes. That's really important. So when you can do a fake smile, Colgate smile, and your eyes don't show it. But if you've got a real smile, if someone makes you laugh, if you're talking with someone that makes you happy, then you've got the smile in your eyes. You can really see it. You really want the smile in your eyes. And I'll show you my headshot. And actually, my headshot was taken just with me sitting in my office. It doesn't have to be outside, but outside is a beautiful place to take it in the summertime. So I recommend doing that. And I'm going to show you mine in just a second. Also, let's talk about your headline. Your headline is the line underneath your name. So when employers and recruiters are looking for people that meet their search criteria for the perfect candidate, they bring up lists of people. And what they see is your name, your pretty picture, which you're going to take, of course. You're going to redo that, make it a great headshot. And then underneath that is your headline. Most people will have the name of the job title that they have and possibly where they work. Nix that. You don't necessarily want that unless it's a really big position in a really well-known name brand company. And you want to stay in that industry if you're looking for a job. So instead, you want to give a value proposition. Now, let me explain what that means. It means it's the implied promise that you are making to an employer of what you are really good at. So think about, what do you do better than most everyone else? Then put that down. And who do you do it for? Helping small to medium-sized businesses, blah, whatever it might be. Or it could be, for instance, operational turnaround expert. Let's see, operational turnaround expert, that would be the what you are. And then what do you do for people? So for companies. So it could be surging revenue and cutting costs to create massive profit expansion. I know that sounds silly, but it really works. And you can get salesy with the language and really find something that will tell people who you work with, in other words, what type of company, and what you do. What are the ultimate results that you were able to achieve? Okay, so I'm going to take a look at mine when I get into the screen share in just a second. And then you also, on your LinkedIn, you want to add quantifiable achievements to your profile. Anything that you can show that's got a number attached to it. That's what people want to know. People are attracted to numbers. The more numbers you have, the easier it is to show that you are a standalone investment and that you will pay for yourself very quickly. If you make yourself a standalone investment by putting in quantifiable achievements, then you will be seen as not just any other candidate, not just a good candidate. You are a standalone investment with a personal ROI. If you can show that by all of the quantifiable results that you can put down, then it's going to be an easy phone call for them to make, really easy. So I recommend that if you have specific proprietary numbers that you can't share because it's your current company, you're working for your current company and you've got some numbers that are really impressive, you might just say saved 9 figures, in doing X, through effective project management, something like that. And if it's annually, make sure you say annually. So we're going to actually do an exercise in just a little bit to quantify your achievements. I'm going to show you exactly what to do to come up with really great achievement stories with quantifiable results. That's probably my favorite part of this whole presentation today. So then something else that I want to share with you is that most people don't join a lot of LinkedIn groups. They don't care. Let me explain why you want to join up to 100 groups. So LinkedIn, when it was bought by Microsoft, they increased, this was back in 2016, they increased the number of groups that you could belong to from 50 to 100. So why do you want to belong to groups? Well, LinkedIn wants you to belong to a lot of groups so that you increase your engagement. You see more news in your news feed and more conversations happening, and you can engage in those conversations more. But here's why you, as a job seeker, want to have 100 groups, and 100 groups with at least 10,000 people or more in them. You want to do this because when you are in the same group as the person who is hunting for you, that includes employers, that includes recruiters, HR, talent acquisition, anyone that, if you are in the same group as them, you come up right above their second level connections. So it's a hierarchy. Think about it this way. When they do a search for certain people with certain skill sets, certain levels, certain amount of experience, then their first level connections come up first in the list of search results. Then their second level connections come up. Now remember, it's only the first or second level connections that meet that search criteria. So it's probably a very small list of first and second level connections that meet that search criteria. But after that, it's going to be the members of the groups that they are in. So if you belong to the same group that they are, you are rising to the top like cream versus being at the very bottom with the third level connections and everybody else. So if they are looking for someone like you, you want to be in the same group that they are. Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go into, we're going to go into LinkedIn, but I'm also going to show you how to find a LinkedIn header image. So there's a couple of things that I want to do here. So I'm sharing my screen here, and this is something that my daughter introduced me to. It's a free service called Momentum. I think it's a Google Chrome extension. So you want to be on Google Chrome whenever you're doing any kind of searching for information, because Google Chrome actually gives you better search results than Google on any other search engine. So let me go into the this Google Chrome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look up LinkedIn header images. So we're going to go LinkedIn header images. So I want you to search Google Chrome for LinkedIn header images, okay? This is what you come up with. And then you want to click on images for LinkedIn header images up here, up top, okay? So I'm going to click on that. Now, I found the best place to find really good LinkedIn header images is under the abstract column here. You see where it says abstract right here? We're going to click on abstract. Now, in abstract, you got, for instance, digital transformation, wallpaper, creative photography, graphic, artistic backdrop, inspirational. So you can go through here, but let me show you exactly. These are all really cool, but let me show you exactly what you can do here to find something. You can kind of dig down better. Let me show you. Like, I'll take this one, for instance. If you happen to like this one, whatever you do, you want to find something that you like. So I'll click on here, but look here, we've got, when you click on that, you see a lot of related posts. So these are related images. And then when you click on see more down at the bottom, so see where I see more. So if I like the idea of the light bulb, I can see dozens of light bulb pictures that are really cool. And it'll actually show a lot of other things as well. So notice that I chose a blue picture and I chose a light bulb picture. And so it gives me a lot of blue pictures. And what you would want to do is find something that you really like. Let's say you're in data center management. You want to try this data center one. So you click on the data center. You also want to look at the size of the pixels. We've got 300 by 91 on this one. That is, it's way too small. You don't want that. So you're going to want something that's about 1400 by 500 pixels, something like that. So if I click on the top data center here, if I click on this one, this is 2000 by 1500. This will work. So then I would right click and then I would save image as, and you're going to save the image to your either your desktop or just your hard drive, and you would save that image. You might find another one that you really like, but you have to make sure that it's not too small, because then it's just going to be pixelated and blurry. You don't want that. So then you would find that, and then you would go into, for instance, your LinkedIn profile, and then you're going to, this is my LinkedIn profile. So let me show you. This is what I've got here. I put my my logo on it. You can easily do that through anywhere from Canva, C-A-N-V-A, Canva, or PicMonkey. I've got subscriptions to both of those. PicMonkey is P-I-C Monkey, and you can. Those are free, and you can do a lot of easy paint by number type of Photoshop enhancements for free, which is really nice. So once you have that image, you're going to click on this little pen, and then you click on this pen up here, and it'll tell you exactly what the pixels are that are recommended. It's 1584 by 396. And if you put something in that doesn't quite meet the specifications or the dimensions, you can move it around. So once you do that, you can move it around. I'm going to close that out. I also want to show you my headshot. See how I'm smiling with my eyes? Pretty smile. And then look here at what I've got for my headline. So this is what you want to show. You want to show what you're an expert in, what your expertise is in. You could call yourself a specialist. You could call yourself a leader. If you are an executive operations leader, you could say something like that. So I am an executive search and career expert. And here's what I do. Globally helping 6-figure and 7-figure executives get hired and paid what they're worth. That tells somebody very quickly what it is that I do and who it is that I do it for. So do that yourself for the types of companies you work for or want to work for. And as long as you change your settings so that it doesn't broadcast changes to your first level connections, nobody's going to know that you changed it, that you're working with, unless they go out to your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I wanted to show you this piece here, but then now I want to show you how to get the groups, because it is not intuitive at all. It's actually, if you went into groups and had them had LinkedIn suggest groups for you, it's not going to suggest the right groups. So you would go and click on here in the search, and then you click on groups over here, and it's showing 1.6 million results. Now I can search for, let's say I want to search for CEO groups. Then you would look at this one. This is top leaders and executives. It's got 97,000 members. So think about this. If the CEO is the one that might be looking for you, or if you know that the HR person or the recruiter is looking for CEOs and you want to be a COO or a CIO, CFO, they're going to be even managers, directors, heads. You don't have to be a leader to be a part of these groups. I am in parts of groups in industries that I've never even been in, but I work with those people. Everyone will say yes. So you're allowed to apply for 10 groups at a time. So you first apply to 10 groups, and then when the administrator of that group lets you in, which can be anywhere from a day to 3 weeks, it just depends on how often the administrator is in that group, then they will say yes. And then once that happens, you can apply to another group. So it takes about 3 or 4 weeks to get up to 100 groups, but here's the criteria that I want you to do. I want you to look at the level that you're seeking. So, and also the function that you're seeking. So let's say you're in marketing, you put in marketing, and I've got social media marketing group. Here's 1.99 million people, members, marketing and communication network, IT marketing, marketing social media. All of these are really big groups. So they're not exactly in order of the biggest to the smallest, but you can find usually some really big groups in the front here. So you want to do the level, you want to do the function that you're in, like IT, marketing, communications, operations, and then also your city. So you might look at Bay Area if you're in the San Francisco area, or Silicon Valley, or you might look at Indianapolis and see what they have as far as Indianapolis. Now, if you live in a smaller town, let's say Des Moines, Iowa, you could put Des Moines and see what's in there. That's where I let you get away with that, with less than 10,000 members. If it's a small city, you do want to be in that, because if they're looking for people that are local, then you want to be in that. Also, industries. If you are into specific industries, let's say transportation. So I put in transportation, and I'm still in groups. So here's LinkedIn transportation professionals, a truckload, trucking, logistics, supply chain, distribution group, transportation, transport, 101,000 members. Bombardier transportation, highways transportation, and civil engineering jobs. There's actually a lot of groups that are just about jobs that you could get into. So the more groups that you belong to, that people are also belonging to, that are looking for you, the more you are going to rise up to the top of their search results. So be adamant about spending the next month applying to groups. And remember, start with 10. And then as people accept you, which they will, nobody wants to not accept you. I've never heard of any of my clients not getting accepted. So then you're going to look at the area of the country or the city that you're in. You're going to look at the level that you're at, the function that you are, and also the industry that you want to get into or that you're into right now. I think I'm even in a transportation group. I've got my 100 groups. You always want to get 100 groups. That really means a lot. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you in my screen share. So let me get back and turn screen share off. And then I'm going to get back to my slides. And let's see here. All right, thanks, guys. Okay, we're finished with the 100 groups. We're finished with LinkedIn. Now we're going to go into quantifying your achievements. And we've just got a little bit longer to go before I start answering questions. So if you are coming up with questions from the information that I'm giving you, go ahead and put them in chat, And then then what I'll do is I'll basically have the moderators text me the questions, and then I can answer the questions from my texts. So be sure and give me those. And I've got a ton of questions from you guys this week. So thank you so much. And if you don't get your question answered this week, I'm also going to be answering interview questions from next week as well. So let's get into how to quantify your achievements. I did explain why you want to quantify your achievements. You really want to do this because, again, human beings are attracted to numbers. And if you show, especially if you've been in big companies, you might have some really big numbers in your career. If you've got those numbers, I'm going to show you how to pull that out of you, okay, out of your history by doing a very specific exercise. So at the end of this live stream, we're going to be giving out the PDFs of this. And that's why this is going to be important that you get this PDF, because it's going to give you the quantification or how to quantify your achievements. So first, you want to block time for concentration. So if you've ever heard of block time, that's basically making sure that your email is off, your phone is off, and that you've got 2 to 4 hours is what I recommend for an exercise. Get something to drink, preferably non-alcoholic. I know. And then also just make sure that you're comfortable and you're sitting at your kitchen table or somewhere very quiet where the kids aren't bothering you, hopefully. And then you're going to block time for concentration, because you've got to think back 15, 20, 25 years. Okay. So I want you to collect your old resumes. Look on your computer, see if you can find the really old resumes from back when you were younger, because those are going to have some achievements that you kind of forgot about and you don't put on your resume right now. So collect those old resumes. And then I want you to write out the names of every position you've held since graduation. That's a lot, I know. And you know, when we go through personal branding with people, we actually have a survey that they fill out that has a tremendous amount of questions. And we're going back everything since you've graduated. Now that's graduated college, or if you don't have a college degree, that's totally fine. Since you graduated high school, you want every position, not every company, but every position listed out, either on a piece of hard copy paper, or you're sitting with your laptop and you're doing this on a Word document or on a Pages document. Okay, so then a definition of an achievement story is, it can start with this one time I ... right? So that's what you want to be thinking. So this one time I did this and it equated, or the ultimate result was this. So be thinking about not only what that ultimate result was, but what were the challenges that you had to overcome in order to make that result happen? And then what were the ripple effects of that result? Usually a very impressive achievement has ripple effects. In other words, it was so good that it was adopted with other business areas throughout the company, or it set a new industry standard, or, it could be a lot of things, different ripple effects, like you saved X amount of dollars and you were able to take those dollars and reuse them to do what, right? So that's the ripple effect of all of your achievements. Now, here's what I want you to do. And this is why you want these PDFs, this PDF after you're done. So at the end of the hour, I'm going to give you this PDF. So for each position you've held, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Did I increase revenue or save money at this job, or both? Now, let me explain something. You want to have you either make a company money or you save a company money. You don't do both. Now, I know you've probably done both, but unless you're going for a CEO or a COO job, you really should focus, unless it's a C-suite position, you really should focus on whether you save a company money or make a company money, because anything less than C-suite, and employers are going to be confused if you show that you've made a company money and you've saved a company money, because they don't know what you want to do next. So think about, what do you love doing? I mean, you may be good at both of those things, but what have you done the most of, and what do you enjoy doing the most? What do you want to continue to do? So are you a money saver or a money earner? All right, so figure that one out first. And then put down what's the biggest scope of responsibility at each position that you've held. And by scope of responsibility, it might be the budget that you worked with. It might be P&L authority if you've had that. It might be number of people that you've managed if you've done that. It might be the size of the projects that you worked on. Even though you may not have been the one managing the project, if you show what size of a project you've worked on, people understand, okay, this person's been, they've worked on some really big, long projects. And then what was the ultimate result? Then what are you most proud of in this job? So think back to that position. That's why you need this block time to really concentrate, right? Maybe put on a little classical music, very quiet. Nothing. I find that when I, for instance, write resumes, I always want something. I want music in the background, but I don't want anybody singing because then I'm too distracted by the words. So I like just either classical music, or sometimes I'll just do some dubstep music for showing my age. Just something with a nice beat to go along with, and then it gets my brain going. There's also some really good YouTube videos that are nothing but really good music to concentrate or study. And that's the kind of music that you want to find. And sometimes they're 8 or 10 hours long for the videos. They're pretty cool. All right. So what am I most proud of in this job? How did I do it differently than other people? So you probably did make that job your own. So how did you make it your own? How did you do it differently than other people in the same job, before or after, or in your team, on your team? And then finally, how did you leave your employer better off than before you started that particular position? So remember, we want to do this per position and not per company. So for every position, think about these 5 questions, answer these 5 questions for every position you've ever held throughout your entire career. If you do that, you're going to have so much information that you can put on LinkedIn and on your resume. That's going to really increase how they think of you. You are going to be a rock star. You're going to absolutely be a professional. I mean, a really top performer. So I want you to do this, and this is going to completely change your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And don't be afraid to put these numbers on your LinkedIn profile. I know a lot of our clients say, nobody's going to believe me. These are really impressive numbers. I don't care. If they're true, put them down. And you're going to be, you're really going to be a professional. You're going to be seen as a top performer. All right. Now we're going to talk about creating a cheat sheet. Okay. So a cheat sheet is something that will alleviate that pressure, that stress that you have every time you walk into an interview about having to remember everything that you've done and everywhere that you've been and all of those stories that you just came up with. How are you going to remember all those? So we're going to talk about creating this cheat sheet. Now you can use this cheat sheet for not only phone interviews and video interviews, but also face-to-face interviews. I have every single one of my clients create this, and they do so for every position that they are interviewing for, because you may want to select the types of achievements that you have that you want for that particular position. So if it's a position for project management, you want to put those in 2 or 3 columns. Here's what you want to do. You want to just list a couple of words to remind you of the achievement story, followed by the quantifiable result. So this is just for you. Nobody else is going to see this. So just put a couple of words to remind you of the story. And you could put like a person's name. That's going to remind you of that story. Maybe it's a customer's name. It might be a project that you worked on. Anything that will remind you of that story. And then followed by the quantifiable result, so that you always remember to say the quantifiable result at the end of the story. Okay. Now that's in the top 2/3 of the paper. You're going to put this in 2 to 3 columns in the top 2/3 of the paper. And in the bottom third of the page, I want you to write out your questions for the interviewer verbatim. In other words, go ahead and write out every single word of those, because that's not something that you have to glance at. You can actually say, hey, I've documented some questions that I wanted to ask you, and then you've got those questions and they're in writing. So make sure that you've got the questions you want to ask, as well as the stories that you want to be able to tell in an interview. Now, keep in mind that with a phone interview that goes 30 minutes, you may only be able to tell 2 or 3 achievement stories, and that's okay. It's all right. But in an hour interview, assume that you want to get about 10 answers, achievement stories in this cheat sheet, although you may only be able to give 5 or 6 during the course of that 45 minutes or an hour. So just assume you're going to tell less stories than you have listed, but list the stories that you feel are going to be very relevant to the position that you're applying for. All right? Okay. Now, I believe this is the last piece, and it's researching the company and the interviewer. Most people that I know always do 2 things before the interview. You research the company by looking at the company website, and then you research the interviewer by looking them up on LinkedIn. We're going to go beyond that. All right. So here's what I want you to do. Get out your Google Chrome again, and I want you to search the name of the company and the city and state. And I want you to search the name of the person that you're talking to and the city and state. For example, Tammy Kabell, Kansas City, Missouri. Now, I actually live in a suburb of Kansas City called Lee Summit, but if you just look up Kansas City, Missouri, like general area, you're going to find some information about me. Same thing with the company, Career Resume Consulting. If you know the exact town that they're in, you should put that exact perhaps suburb or part of the city, you would put that in there, Lee Summit, Missouri. And then in Google Chrome, you're going to look at the search results, go back 5 to 6 pages of results. Interesting thing happens is that you're looking at things like their Twitter feed, their Facebook, perhaps. Believe it or not everybody has their Facebook locked down, and their Twitter is always available. So look at any social media that you can in order to find out anything about that interviewer. You want to find out what's important to them, what's not important to them. You could look up things that you shouldn't be looking up, like religious affiliation or political affiliation, and those things that you don't want to talk about, but you want to be prepared that this is this type of person before you go into the interview. Okay. So don't be afraid to look up Facebook or Twitter. You do need a Facebook account in order to look at Facebook, I believe. But with Twitter, you don't have to have a Twitter account. Although you might even just put in a ghosting Facebook account just so that you can go into Facebook and take a look at someone. And oftentimes, if the person you're looking for is a high-level executive, they may not be on Facebook, but their spouse might be. So you might look up the person's name and the city and state, and you may find something. If you look up the last name and the city and state, if it's not a common last name, you may be able to find the spouse of the person that you're talking to. And you'll find all kinds of information. You know, I've even found things like Amazon wish lists and tax liens and just all kinds of stuff that you shouldn't be finding out about. But you don't want to go into overstalking mode, but it wouldn't be bad to stalk them a little bit, because then you could use that information to create some informed, educated questions that are based on the research that you've done. So for instance, now here's something that no one does. Go into YouTube and see if there is a video of them speaking at a conference or a symposium, and see if there's just a little speaking engagement about them, or see if they are quoted anywhere in a business journal as representing their company, so that you could start the conversation with, you know, I was doing research on you and I saw that one quote that you said that really fascinated me about XYZ, and then you go into whatever it is. That's specific flattery, and that always lands really well. So use specific flattery when you get the chance. All right. So if you have any questions about how to do research, put them in the chat, and then I'll answer those questions. All right. All right. Okay. So we are here to help, of course. And Lacey, go ahead and bring up Brian's information. Brian actually, we got some feedback that Brian was hard to get scheduled last week for this upcoming week because he was so booked. However, you guys in the live stream are very important to us. And you have wonderful questions. You're so engaged, and we really love talking to you. So if you have additional questions or you want to find out whether we can help you in your search, you can talk to Brian. Trust me, he's not going to try to sell you anything because he's not wired that way. He's actually wired to educate, kind of like I am. He's wired to help people out. So if you have more questions and you'd like to get answers, and you'd like to find out your marketability in a specific market, or your have a resume review, something like that, go ahead and sign up to talk with Brian. And you can email him at Brian@Career Resume Consulting, or you can click on the button to talk with Brian, and he will be able to just schedule a time to talk. If you find that it's not close enough, he did clear his calendar for next week, so you should be able to find a time next week to talk with him. But if you'd like to talk with him earlier than what you're able to see on his calendar, then just email him and he can put you in earlier. You can even email me and Lacey will contact you. So always feel free to email us. We're very, even if you're not a client, we always try to help people, as many people as possible. All right. So let's now go into answering some questions. I'm really excited about this part. And if there are questions that you have that you'd like answered, just put them in the chat, and then the moderators will go ahead and send me those questions, and I'll take a look at those. Right now, I'm going to go into the questions that I got ahead of time because I want to respect the people that put in questions ahead of time. So let's take a question from Elmer, and these are interview questions. So this is all about interviewing. So let the questions fly, because if I don't get to them today, then I will definitely get to them next week. So when you've made it through many interviews to get to the final decision on several occasions, and you're told by everyone that you were a great candidate and you interviewed well, but you weren't selected to the final decision, how do you avoid feeling like you're doing something wrong and you're not being told about your feedback? Yeah. So thank you, Elmer, for that one. A lot of people feel that way. A lot of people. I get actually that same question or something like it from a lot of different people. So you want to be able to solicit feedback. Don't be afraid to ask the hiring manager. Don't be afraid to ask the recruiter. Sometimes recruiters are fickle. They're really hot for you one day, and then poof, you don't get anything from them after that. So you have to remember, recruiters are extremely busy. They go through about 150 unsolicited resumes a day. And so in addition to sourcing their own candidates, they're getting emails and they're getting resumes all of the time. So they have moved on, and you just have to pester them. Now, here's something to note about recruiters, or really anybody. You have to figure out what they respond best to. Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Is it a text? So find out how they prefer to be communicated with. As a matter of fact, when you're on the phone with a recruiter, ask them, how often should I follow up with you? And how would you like me to follow up with you? Is it, will you want me to text you? Do you want me to email you? Do you want me to leave you a voicemail? And that way they have given you permission to follow up with them every 3 weeks if they don't have anything available, or maybe every week if you're in a hiring process. So because they've given you permission to do that, don't feel like a pest to go ahead and do that. Also, I got a lot of questions, and I know I'm going to butcher this name, but it's aced or iced, maybe. The question is, how do you negotiate remote work? I did get a lot of those. So if you also asked that question, just know that I got probably 5 or 6 questions about negotiating remote work. Remote work is getting more and more popular. And as a matter of fact, Brett, the gentleman that got the job last week, he actually got a job without ever talking to anybody in person because everything was post-COVID. So he just Zoomed with everybody and he ended up getting a $345,000 a year job. It was a legit job. So, and he's working from home, you know, in a very, very small town. So what I would recommend as far as negotiating remote work is sell yourself first, and then when they've offered you the job, start talking remote work as a part of the negotiation. So I think this question was worded really well when it just said remote work negotiations. You're negotiating, so don't negotiate until they've offered you the position. Once they've offered you the position, they are committed to you being their person of choice. So because of that, then you have more leverage and you can ask if this could be a remote position. And then you possibly, if it's out of town, you could fly in once or twice a month for a couple of days. Usually that's not too disruptive. And so remote work is becoming more and more popular. And of course, when we found out that everybody had to work from home for about 3 months a little bit ago, then everybody understood that you could get work done remotely and actually get a lot of work done and be productive. So wait until you have built your value and your relevancy, and of course your likability. So it's not just competency, but it's relevancy and likability. Wait till you've built all of that, and then talk with them about having potentially a remote, because they could offer you the job, but if you wanted it remote and they don't give that to you, it could break down in the negotiation part. You don't have to accept a job if it's been offered to you. All right. So let me take a look. I'm going to do one more. Connecting with recruiters to ask them to consider you for specific roles. And there's a lot about recruiters in here, actually. For instance, when recruiters call, it feels different than a one-on-one with a hiring manager. Absolutely. They are very different. And so with a recruiter, it is a gatekeeper. It's a screening call. You don't necessarily want to ask the really great questions because they're not going to have the answer for you, because unless they are within the company, they're not going to know some of the biggest challenges that the company's dealing with or where the company wants to go in the future, anything like that. So you just want to go through the screening call and then perhaps answer some questions. If they don't answer them during the actual call, ask them at the end. But with recruiters, it really is about competency. So don't necessarily try to show your relevancy or your likability so much, but it's really about competency because it's a screening call. Same with HR. It's a screening call. And also when we talk about negotiations next week, I'm going to give you some verbiage that you can use to keep from having premature negotiations. In other words, a lot of recruiters will ask, what are your salary requirements? Well, let's see. There we go. And you don't want to answer the salary requirements. So I'm going to give you next week. I'm going to hold on and make you wait till next week. And then we're going to go into having the phone interviews and getting into some face-to-face interviewing stuff. So I know we're getting up to the top of the hour, and a lot of you are just doing this for, let's see, a lot of you are just doing this on your lunch hours. So I appreciate that you might have to leave, but let's take a look at a couple of questions. Let's see, how would you define uncertain references? Well, you need to coach them. If you don't have references that you know 100% what they're going to say, then you got to find some that do. And so, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from the last 2 years. That's probably the ideal situation. But if you've got somebody that was if you're doing a confidential search, you're not going to have anybody from your current company that you can use as a reference. So do not use uncertain references. Just don't. You just want to be able to coach them so that you know exactly what they're going to say. And they have been trained by you as to what to say and how to answer the questions. And then one of them was, I'm apprehensive about phone interviewing. We're going to cover that next week. I think this is starting to, I mean, you guys are pretty much telling me what you need to know. So given the questions that I'm getting, I think we need to do something on phone interviewing, how to have a great phone interview. And so don't know how to answer this question from a recruiter. We receive hundreds of applications. How do you consolidate? I'm not sure exactly what that question means, so I'm not sure. They do receive hundreds of applications. Even in a good or bad job market, they're going to get a lot of applications. That's why I'm not a big fan of posted positions, because there are better ways to search for a job that is outside the posted positions, especially if you're looking for a six-figure position. They're not going to be on the job boards. So go completely rogue, get away from the job boards, and reach out to the person that would be your boss directly and have a conversation with them and bypass recruiters and HR. That's the way that we do it, and we find it's very, very successful. But I understand a lot of people that are on this call are going to need to do the job boards. So we'll go through working with job boards as well as going around that later on. But for next time, I think we're going to do some phone interviewing. Same company for 17 years. This will be the last question I answer. So a lot of our clients have never had to look for a job before. They've worked for the same company or the same industry for 17 years or 25 years. We get that a lot. And it used to be seen as a positive, but when the recession happened in 2008, 2009, all of a sudden that changed. All of the people that had one job, one company for 30 years, they were completely loyal. All of that changed because the companies didn't treat that loyalty well. Let's put it that way. So because of that, it is not anymore considered to be a strength to be in one company for 17 years, because employers think that you may be set in your ways. You may not want to do things a different way. And so you've really got to show your flexibility on the phone call. In order to get past the screening call, you've got to show that you're very flexible, you're very coachable, you're malleable. You've got to show that you handle things differently depending on the situation. That's what's going to get you past a recruiter or HR professional in order to get to the hiring manager. And unfortunately, it's not considered a strength anymore. It's considered a detriment. So it's a liability. So that's all I've got for you today. I would love to know in the chat, because I do read the chat logs after every single one of these live streams. I would love to know, what was the most valuable piece of information today? What did you get out of today that was a big aha for you that you're going to take with you and start doing differently? And I'd like, since we're at the end, before we give out the file, unless you've done it already, I'd like to take a poll now on how confident are you when you're entering into an interview? In other words, tell me how, go ahead, Lacey, and start that poll. And if you guys could answer that for me, how confident are you? Like extremely confident, still pretty nervous about your interviewing skills? Tell me if this has been helpful for you to go into an interview with a different mindset. Now that you're going to be able to know more things about the employer, you're going to be seen as a top performer ahead of time. And it looks like a lot of you are now extremely confident. Actually, that's pretty great. We've been able to turn some people around today. Fantastic. And looks like mildly confident is still the winner, but this is great information. I really appreciate that. So thank you. And if you have questions for next week as far as phone interviewing, maybe it's with a recruiter, maybe it's with HR, or it could be with the hiring manager. Tell me what it is that you want to know about phone interviewing, and I'll answer those. And I want to know too, what did you find best about this hour that we spent together? What did you learn that was the biggest aha for you? I really want to know what's working and what's not. So I really appreciate all of your your chat and all of your participation, your engagement. I really do. I love hearing the questions. I love seeing the attaboy and all of the accolades. So please let me know how you're feeling about this information. Let me know if I really hit the target, hit the mark, or if I need to give some supplemental information. So that's it for me today. I'm going to leave the chat open a little bit longer, and then I would love to hear your feedback. Go ahead and leave that. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, but I am going to leave the chat up for about 5 more minutes so that you can leave your feedback so that I know if I'm doing a good job or not, and I know what it is that you really enjoyed about this information. Okay, thank you guys, and I will speak to you next week. All right, bye now. See ya. Have a great weekend.